Well, Broncos country, the Denver Broncos, they have a lot of second year players that I'm really, really excited to see going into the 2025 season. We're going to talk about each and every one of them and which ones or one is most likely to break out in the second season and have the biggest impact on this football team heading into 2025. Guys, if you love Denver sports and you love talking about Broncos and Avs and Nuggets and just having a good time, man, I'd consider subscribing if you're not already. Check some of the other vids out. Hit me up in the comments and let's get right to it. And let's talk about some of the second year candidates, right? Because a lot of people are just talking about, the Veles and the Franklins and the Jonah Ellis and, Audric Estime. And of course, we are going to cover them. But let's not forget about Kris Abrams-Draine. Let's not forget about someone like Levelle Bailey and Blake Watson. I'm going to put them on the breakout player candidate list, even though Levelle Bailey did not take a snap last year on defense, I don't believe. And Blake Watson played very, very minimally. And same with Kris Abrams-Draine. He played a little bit more at the end of the season. But these are all guys that I'm really intrigued about. It's actually a very talented list of players. So we're going to talk about each and every one of them. Now, there was a recent poll that I had seen on Mile High Report, and I think it was from SB Nation. And they had asked which second year player takes the biggest step forward for the Broncos, right? So what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to share the screen and I'm going to show y'all the results of this because I thought it was really interesting. Let's take this down and let's move it like this. All right, now we're cooking. So the results were Devaughn Vele, surprisingly, at 31%. That's who the Broncos fans are the most intrigued and optimistic about. Troy Franklin was a close second at 29%, Jonah Ellis at 26%, and Audric Estime at 14%. So I just want to kind of make a reaction to this and throw in a couple other guys that I think that we can talk about and really dive into to see, all right, what kind of impacts are these guys going to make? So my initial reaction to this list here is, I suppose it's fine, right? Not the biggest fan of having Devaughn Vele at number one. Although I do think I saw a lot of really good things on him. I feel like he's going to be utilized more as a use as needed basis this upcoming season because he doesn't really have a trait that he possesses that's very special for the team. But what he does do is he can kind of do everything pretty good, right? He's a little bit more of a mature player. Obviously, we know he's a little bit older coming out of Utah. But in addition to that, he's just, if you need him to fill in for Sutton, he can do that. He can play the outside X on both sides. If you need for him to be someone that, wins across the middle in the slot, like let's say Evan Ingram misses a couple games and you need him to be able to, take over a little bit of the pass routes that Evan Ingram will be running, he'll be doing that as well. I can see that. He's a decent blocker. He's someone that can play a little bit of Z in this offense as well. But he's kind of, like I said, I think he'll be used as more of an as-needed basis. And I think he really overperformed, obviously, as a rookie and as a seventh-round pick rookie. Going into Troy Franklin, I can understand. I thought he would be the one that everyone was the most optimistic about. You saw a lot of issues in his game, but I also saw a lot of things that I was very positive about, and I was actually very pleasant for me to see. One being the fact that he never seemed to get down on himself. His confidence remained very high, even though he had moments where he struggled. He struggled very early on in camp. I remember a lot of fans all over Twitter were talking about, oh, Troy Franklin might not even make this team and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, guys, I'll sell my house if he doesn't make the team. There's no way. We drafted this kid in the fourth round. We moved up to get him in the fourth round, and we're going to give up on him after a bad mini camp. That being said, he ends up making the roster. Doesn't really make much, doesn't get on the field much in the first couple weeks, but then he kind of starts to get some playing time. And yes, he had his struggles, right? Ball tracking was a big deal. It was a big issue, big issue for him. Drops was a big problem for him. But as my buddy David Talks Broncos had highlighted in his most recent video that he dropped earlier today, he is a player that creates quite a bit of separation. There's no doubt about that. So he does have his unique ways of being able to get open. And I feel like if he can develop mainly on just the crispness of his routes, on somebody that can just become a stronger player too, he needs to definitely add some strength to his game and, develop and just continue to get more confident. I think he could be a big time breakout player. I ultimately believe that he's going to be mainly the deep threat guy, the guy that tries to take the top off over the defense. And that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to run deep routes and catch the deep balls or even have the ball get thrown to him. There is so many nuances in Sean Payton's offense that a player like Franklin is a very pivotal role, because you'll ask him to run, the go routes, the deep posts, the down the field, to be able to spread it out in order to open up a lot more short to intermediate routes for the other guys. And then eventually, when that shot is there, they're going to take it. And, I think that he's going to take a massive step forward in terms of being able to take advantage of those. But I liked what I saw from Troy, man. I mean, held up really well, even being a very undersized guy. And like I said, I feel pretty optimistic about him. The guy that I would probably rank the highest on my list on here is Jonah Ellis. Ain't no doubt about it. That guy came in last year and just looked like a veteran from day one. Unbelievably impactful, really good against the run, very strong player, good leverage. He had a relentless motor, good pass rush moves, and an array of different pass rush moves. He ended the season with, I believe, 6 sacks, which is very impressive, especially on a defense that led the league in sacks. For a rookie to be able to come in, play in 436 snaps, so I don't even think that's 50%, and yet be able to get that kind of production is awesome. He had 14 pressures, during that time as well. What I really liked about him is just how good he is against the run. Typically, when you get rookie edge rushers, Nick Benito as an example, they're raw as a pass rusher, but they're very athletic and they're very gifted from a pass rush standpoint, but they struggle mightily when it comes to setting the edge and playing the run. Not Jonah Ellis. Very mature player, very good. One thing that I don't think we've talked about enough here is how is Jonah Ellis's recovery from offseason shoulder surgery coming along. We should get a lot more information about that as we get ready to kick off OTAs tomorrow, but that's going to be a big thing, right? It was a pretty serious injury that he had suffered in the playoff game, and I really hope it doesn't hamper or get year 2 for him off to a slow start. Another thing you think about too with these injuries, man, is if he's been rehabbing the entire offseason, he's not really lifting as much. Where is his strength going to be at? What kind of a shape is he going to be in? How is it going to hold up? So he might have a slower start to the season, but nonetheless, if he's able to make a full recovery, I think Jonah Ellis is somebody that is an absolute stud. Big fan of his, ain't no doubt about that. And then we talked about Audric Estime, man. I'm super optimistic about him. Would I rank him as the most likely to take a big step or be a breakout player for the team? No, because I think that RJ Harvey is going to be there. But if you talk about what he did last year versus what I can see him doing in 2025, he could definitely be the one that takes the biggest leap forward, right? Overall, he had, let me pull up the numbers here just so I make sure I got them all right for you. Come on. All right. Overall, he had 76 carries for 310 yards and 2 touchdowns last year. I can see him getting double the amount of yards, double the amount of more than double the amount of touchdowns, and more than double the amount of carries as well next year, given if he's going to be kind of the 1B running back to RJ Harvey. I'm not as low on somebody like Audric Estime as I think the consensus is. Because, we talked about this. I made an entire video based on that, but I'm actually really optimistic about Audric Estime, and I'm really liking the idea of an RJ Harvey and Audric Estime type of a backfield, right? So when you break those 4 players down, those 4 main guys, I think if I had to rank it, I would rank it as Jonah Ellis number 1, Troy Franklin number 2, Audric Estime number 3, and Devaughn Vele as my number 4. But like I talked about earlier, guys, I mean, we can't forget about the guy Kris Abrams-Draine, right, as an option. Now, he's somebody that I wouldn't necessarily think that he's going to be a breakout player. I think he showed a lot of wonderful traits last year. He showed that he can play. He's much more of a gamer. I think he took Sean Payton even by surprise. But that room, man, is getting really, really competitive after we drafted Jahdae Barron. What's going to happen with Jaquan McMillan, right? Where's Kris Abrams-Draine going to play? He mainly, a lot of people thought he was going to be more of a slot corner. but he played a little bit of outside last year, so he showed that he could be a versatile player as well. So I think he'll contribute. He's going to be a wonderful depth piece to the secondary. Our secondary is absolutely loaded. But how much playing time is he ultimately going to get? I think it's going to be very much dependent on injuries on this team. Levelle Bailey is a very interesting one because the inside linebacker battle in this offseason might be the one that I would be the most intrigued by, definitely on the defensive side. Because yes, we got Dre Greenlaw. We know he's going to be the starter. Plug him in and play him. Super, super pumped up about that one. But man, you got Alex Singleton, right? Who should be the favorite, but coming off of an ACL. He's an aging prospect, right? He's somebody that the contract situation could pose to be a problem for the Broncos. Maybe they don't want to pay him that kind of money, and they'd rather save the money by releasing him or trading him to another team for assets, or using the money after they cut him to fill in and sign some guys elsewhere. So there's a lot of that hanging around it. Then you got Drew Sanders, who I think we all really, really would like to be optimistic about, and we would like to think that he's going to, be the guy, and he's going to, show that now that he finally has an identity in terms of where he's playing as an inside linebacker instead of flip-flopping between edge and, off-ball linebacker. It should help, but he hasn't really given us any reason to be very optimistic, right? He hasn't played very many snaps, and the snaps that he's played, it hasn't been all that great. He might have shown a little bit of flashes here and there. Really bad injuries over the course of his very short career. So there's a lot that has to go right for Drew Sanders to be the starting outside linebacker outside of Dre Greenlaw. Levelle Bailey is a very interesting one because he was a very under the radar type of a player last year, right? He was him and I always forget names when I press record, man. It is crazy. It is crazy how that happens every single time. But it was him and another player Kadron Smith, the safety. They were kind of the stars of the preseason last year, right? They were the ones always making plays. I think Kadron had 2 interceptions, one in back-to-back games. And Levelle Bailey had a pick 6 or a fumble 6 or something like that. Anyways, they both played very well, and they both ultimately made the team. Kadron, I think, ended up being on the practice squad. But Levelle Bailey was someone that was made this team, both of them as undrafted guys, but the Broncos coaching staff used this last season to really focus on developing them and making sure that they just continue to get, more fit for the NFL, bigger, stronger, more comfortable. And you saw it too, right? Because we had the injury to Alex Singleton. We end up signing like Zach Cunningham. We end up signing another vet as well at the time. And then we end up going with Barton and Sternad as the starters. And then we flip-flop some of those other, veteran players that we had ultimately brought in. So we never really gave them the opportunity. But this could be a massive, massive chance for a player like Levelle Bailey to be able to prove what it is that he can do, if anything, for this team. And I like him as a big-time dark horse, man. Do not be surprised if he ultimately ends up being somebody that, contributes heavy on this defense. He's a little bit of an undersized player, right? I mean, there's no doubt about that. He was somebody that he actually played in 7 snaps last year. Look at that. But let's go ahead and let's do this. Oops. Come on. All right. So you can see last year he actually played in 7 snaps, and 5 of those snaps were in run defense. 1 was a pass rush, and 1 was in coverage. Who cares about the grades, guys? Let's face it. It was in 7 snaps in total. But he's someone that is definitely undersized. At 6'2", 225 pounds, you don't expect for him to really, when you look at someone that size, you say, okay, is he going to be better against the run? Is he going to be better in coverage? You think he's, mainly going to be a better coverage linebacker. But it doesn't really matter as much this year because you have Dre Greenlaw, and Dre Greenlaw's got the ability to be an elite coverage linebacker and an elite run defending linebacker. You just have to be able to find another piece that complements him very well, that can play a certain role very well. So, for example, Alex Singleton, not a good linebacker in coverage. Fantastic against the run. That would work really well. We know that he's very good against the run, right? Drew Sanders, not necessarily the best against the run, but he's the kind of projects to be a good coverage linebacker, but he has to show that he can be very, very good at that. So all of these linebackers got to do is come in and show that they can do something very particular very, very well, whether it's playing against the run or playing in coverage. And then whatever it is that they do good, Dre Greenlaw will just do the other thing, if that makes sense. So I think Levelle Bailey's got a very, very good chance of not just making the team again, that's obvious, but contributing and really competing to be the linebacker opposite of Dre Greenlaw. So I'm super excited about watching him. And then obviously, man, as y'all know, my guy Blake Watson. I love me some Blake, man. I'm still super high on Blake Watson. And I think that there's a world in where it can be a Blake Watson, RJ Harvey type of a backfield, right? Because what we do know about Blake Watson is that he's a very good pass catcher. That is the one unique trait that he has that no one else in this running back room has that we know of, right? I mean, can RJ Harvey become a very good pass catcher? Sure. Audric Estime didn't really drop any passes in college, but he's not a pass catching running back. Julian McLaughlin doesn't really catch much. Blake Watson, we know he can do that because he was a receiver at Memphis before he transitioned over to be a running back. That being the case, that could be a wonderful compliment to RJ Harvey as well. You might be able to sprinkle him in a little bit and see what it is that he can do. But he's a dynamic player, and he's someone that I'm really excited to see. Again, I would say that my ratings really remain unchanged. I would go with Jonah Ellis. If I have to, I'm going to rank it with all 7 of these guys. So these are definitely not in order. But my final rankings would end up being Jonah Ellis as number 1, Troy Franklin as number 2, Audric Estime as number 3, Levelle Bailey as number 4, Blake Watson as number 5, Devaughn Vele as number 6, and Kris Abrams-Draine as number 7. And like I said, this does not mean that I'm low or I'm, not really optimistic at all about Devaughn Vele. I think he's a really good player. I definitely want to see him on this team. I liked what I saw from him as a rookie, but I just don't view, I personally don't project him being someone that gets more playing time this year than he had gotten last year. I think that with the development that you expect from Franklin, another leap forward that you expect from Marvin Mims, the drafting of Pat Bryant is going to make it more difficult this year for Devaughn Vele to get on the field than it was last year. And so I just think his opportunities to really break out are not going to be there. And again, I think he's going to be more of a use as needed receiver rather than someone that is a major part of the game plan, just because he doesn't necessarily possess a very special skill set like some of these other guys do. And I truly do believe that as it currently stands, even without watching Pat Bryant take a single snap in the NFL, I do believe that he is a better and more well-rounded wide receiver than Vele. They have a lot of similarities. They're both bigger bodied guys. They don't have a specific trait that is elite, but they do everything very well. I just think Pat Bryant does a lot of those things better. I think he creates separation better. I think he utilizes leverage in his routes better. I think he's got even better hands. He can be a better blocker. So a lot of the things that Sean Payton is going to ask for from a wide receiver too, Pat Bryant has that. So that's why that knocks Devaughn Vele down the list. Now, why do I have Troy Franklin up? Because I think Troy Franklin has a lot more room to grow, right? Vele had a better season than Troy Franklin had this past year, but Franklin's also going to be playing a more specialized type of, position on the receiver front in terms of what his responsibilities are. He's going to be someone that has that explosive ability, that speed to be able to spread the defense out and really take the top off of them. And, that's why I think he's going to have a lot of ample opportunities to be able to break out. Same thing with Audric Estime. I think Audric Estime is just going to get a lot of chances. We kind of have no other choice at this point besides Blake Watson. And so, I'm optimistic about him, but yeah, ain't no doubt about it. I think Jonah Ellis would be my number 1. That's the guy that I'm looking forward to watching the most, in this upcoming year. And there can be a lot of domino effects from somebody like, totally had a mind blank. Sorry. Somebody like Jonah Ellis taking another leap, right? I mean, what's another leap? You're talking 9 sacks, right? Coming from 6 from his rookie season. he's able to do that. Now you got to start thinking about that room, right? Nick Bonito, he's due for a contract extension soon. How does it affect that? Does it? If it doesn't affect Nick Bonito, because they, I view it like Nick Bonito and Jonah Ellis are very different as pass rushers. So if they loved Nick Bonito's upside and what he can bring, what does that mean for somebody like Jonathan Cooper, who already got paid, who you can move on from? It's a very team-friendly contract. So it's a good thing for the Broncos, but it also makes trading him a lot easier. Teams are going to be very intrigued to trade for a player like him with that contract. It's not anything that's too crazy. So it could lead to a lot of different scenarios happening. It could also lead to us maybe not paying Nick Bonito at all and just saying, you know what, we're gonna try what we can, but maybe we'll start allocating the money later. It's a very fluid situation. You know how it goes. And then I'm excited to watch Levelle Bailey. I think Levelle Bailey is a big time dark horse to ultimately be the week 1 starter at linebacker opposite of Dre Greenlaw. Can't wait to see that room. Let me know what you guys think below, man, in the comments. And maybe I missed somebody. There are a couple of other players that are technically second-year players, right? The A.T. Perrys. Dondrea Tillman is another example. Keydron Smith, someone that we didn't necessarily touch base on. There's even like Frank Crum, right? I didn't want to add those guys on the list because I just don't know how much they were going to play. But hey, who the hell knows? So let me know. Oh, Jordan Jackson, right? He's a second-year guy from Air Force. So let me know below what your guys' thoughts are down below in the comments. I would love to hear them. And I can't wait to watch this, man. Minicamp, our OTA start tomorrow. Let's get it. Go Broncos. Y'all stay safe, man. And until the next video, peace.